Hare Krishna, beautiful people. We are coming at you live once again. And welcome to the Soul Ashraya podcast, a weekly bhakti podcast where we will seek the shelter and wisdom of our dear Lord Krishna with Shastra, prayer, and conversation. I am your host, Bhakta Jake. And I am joined by my friend and teacher and truck driver, Balarama Das. So, Balaram, where in the great wide world are you today?
I am in scenic West Virginia.
Ooh, scenic. Very scenic out there in West Virginia, I hear.
More like mountainous West Virginia.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. I want to do the whole show in that accent now.
No, please don't.
Too bad they're not like the mountains in New Zealand. Hey, if we have any people out in New Zealand, I love you. I love all New Zealanders. I love all Australians. I love everybody. Let's just be honest. Oh my goodness. So here we are again, Balaram. I am sorry for the technical difficulty that I can't use my laptop to bring up the prayers in the text. However, I am back at home after working in the beautiful city of Philadelphia. I am back home now. Came back for Thanksgiving. So I do have my Krishna book, which is our main text on this show. And I do have a printed out copy of the Magna Chalaran Chalaran prayers. I know I didn't say that right. I'm sorry. I am so infamous for not being able to talk. Oh my goodness. So that's what I got. What do you got?
Also in my book.
Check.
Ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready to dive in. I don't have anything really of too much importance to say right at the moment, except for hopefully I'll be getting the password to the internet so I can use that at some point. But we'll see how that goes. So, all right, Prabhu, if you want to start the Magdal Charan prayers, I'll join in with you.
All right, great. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Jai Jai Jagannath. Well, I tell you what, Prabhu, I really get the feeling that the devotees of Lord Krishna are really getting out there. It seems like we're really using the resources. It seems like every time you turn around, there's a new WhatsApp group or a new podcast or some kind of little class. It seems like, my YouTube feed is just class after class, and it's just like what we're doing. It's like a recorded Zoom meeting, but sometimes they do it on Zoom and live stream on YouTube as well, like at the same time. And I do not know how to do that, but I know that there are people out there that are that technically sophisticated where they can do that. And they can probably even do it on Facebook too. But I I'm just I'm just the person that just doesn't want to be on Facebook. I to me it's just not a good it's not a good place as far as social media. There's so much more out there. Let's move on. Let's use. I like to use other things. But, you know,
Yeah,
it seems like we're really using available resources.
yeah, yeah. I wanted to make a note for our listeners here. Just ask. Uh, it seems like we have maybe a few dozen people. I'm assuming the same. That like core group is probably the same people listening. So those of you who do listen, um, give us some feedback.
Yeah,
Point that's done. It's like where are you at? Like what are your spiritual needs? Like what are you getting from the show? Like is the format working? Because that's another thing. Just like off of what you're saying, like is this format work for you? Like I was listening to Joe Rogan mention him before, and he has a very different format than most podcasts, I would say. That just like a long discussion format.
yeah,
And like that, there's different things. So like, because what we're doing right now is nice for you and I, and we're hoping that it's like working nicely for those who are listening. But just in a kind of general sense, because we're not just doing it for ourselves. We want it to be as helpful for others as possible. It's like, because like you said, we're trying to just get the message out there, get this transcendental knowledge out there. So yeah,
yeah,
however we can improve on that for those that are tuned in. But yeah, just like any comments as well, because that'll help further the discussion. It's not just you and I; it's everyone who's listening. I want to know that they're also part of the conversation. And can jump on the Zoom meetings. You know, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I would definitely. I'm always open to feedback from listeners. Um, Also, if there's anybody who's a devotee and slightly more technical savvy than Balaram and myself, who can actually help us, just put the sound files on Spotify or whatever streaming service. Because I feel like so much like it's great that we have YouTube for a format because a lot of people have like YouTube where they pay for it so they can just listen to it, you know. Um, but I'd like to get on a free format where you can just listen to us because honestly, there's not much going on visually. It's like, I mean, I know I try my best. I try my best, to be visually stunning. I know I do. Balaram, I mean, you can only do so much for some people.
Yeah.
I mean, I compliment them every time, but that's just kind of, you know, No, I'm kidding. I just think it would be helpful, like, because when you're listening to a podcast, you're usually doing something. You're working or you're jogging or you're eating your breakfast or whatever, and you don't really need a picture. All you need to do is have your earbud in your ear and you're listening to the podcast. Or maybe you're doing some art and you're listening while you're doing art, you know, or any number of things. And you just have your everyone's walking around with those things in their ears now. So that's probably our main way. So I'm just trying to get us up on Spotify, and I have no idea how to do it because I'm old.
Get the audio files when Zoom sends us the thing, so it might be very simple.
It might be. It might be. I know that Zoom does send us all kinds of stuff.
Although not always. Anyway.
Yeah.
That might be really simple. I was thinking you were gonna go with, someone who's tech savvy to help like video editing and those things. So
Yeah.
That would also be.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good too. We could doll up Balarama a little bit, make him look a little better, I guess, give him some gold chains or something. I'm so sorry.
All right. Okay.
Little eyeliner.
Take all the help.
Right. No, I know it won't help. I'm just trying to make suggestions. Oh my goodness. All right, Prabhu. I'm sorry. Let's come down now. Let's get into this word. Let's get into the text now. I'm sorry. I'm gonna settle down a little bit here. Okay. So we were just so close to the end of chapter 2 in the Krsna book. And what was that? I believe we started or we ended with our dear Lord, you are appearing as the best of the Yadu dynasty. Or did we get by that one?
We did that one. So
okay. Dear Mother Devaki. All right. We're on Dear Mother Devaki.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like to read?
Yeah, I'll read. Since you're driving, I'll read.
I'm not driving, but I am locomoting. So.
Gotcha. Not driving. Okay, I'll read. I love that smile. That is a fantastic smile right there. All right, so Krsna book, the end of chapter 2, almost to chapter 3, we have Dear Mother Devaki. Within your womb is the supreme personality of Godhead, appearing along with all his plenary expansions. He is the original personality of Godhead, appearing for our welfare. Therefore, you should not be afraid of your brother, the king of Boha. Your son, Lord Krsna, who is the original personality of Godhead, will appear for the protection of the pious Yadu dynasty. The Lord is appearing not alone, but accompanied by his immediate plenary portion, Baladeva. Who that is actually Balaram, isn't that Balaram he's talking about there? Yeah. Devaki was very much afraid of her brother Kamsa because he had already killed so many of her children. So she was very anxious about Krsna. In the Vishnu Purana, it is stated that in order to pacify Devaki, All the demigods, along with their wives, used to visit her to encourage her not to be afraid that her son would be killed by Kamsa. Krishna, who was within her womb, was to appear not only to diminish the burden of the world, but specifically to protect the interests of the Yadu dynasty, and certainly to protect Devaki and Vasudeva. It is understood that Krishna had been transferred from the mind of Vasudeva to the mind of Devaki, and from there to her womb. Thus, Devaki, the mother of Krishna, was worshipable for all the demigods. After thus worshiping the transcendental form of the Lord, all the demigods of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, placed in front, departed for their heavenly abodes. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of the second chapter of Krishna, Prayers by the Demigods for Lord Krishna in the Womb. So this is really a very cool thing because it's such a transcendental birth, you know? This whole chapter, it really explains, you know, in the Western, we think of like how it was like a miracle that Jesus was born. I guess like in kind of like the equal part of that maybe would be like the amazing miraculous way that Krishna was born, really. I mean, of course it's going to be just like the most miraculous birth ever, right? And that's what it says here. Transferred from the mind of Vasudeva to the mind of Devaki, and from there to her womb. Thus, Devaki, the mother of Krishna, was worshipful for all the demigods. That Kamsa was something else, I tell you what. He was an evil, evil dude.
Yeah, and we're going to hear more about him in chapter 4. Yeah, so this is into the second chapter, which has been a lot of like philosophy. So we've been moving through very slowly, or as my grandmother would say, not slow. Is like people in the South, she would say, they're not slow; they're just deliberate. You know, very deliberate. So
yeah.
No, it warrants, or it kind of demands, like really taking time because there's a lot of philosophical concepts in this. This tradition is extraordinarily rich philosophically. It's not just like bedtime stories, you know, that are just nice stories.
Yeah.
It's I want to say built on, but it's not like this. It's built on philosophy as, in a sense, it's coming from philosophy because it's, in a sense, the philosophy is coming. They're kind of like simultaneously eternally existent, right? That's another thing that I'm sure we've talked about several times, is that these stories are eternal. This philosophy is eternal, and you know, this is actually a really nice point that I've been contemplating the last couple of weeks, from hearing in his book, The Sacred and the Profane. Mircea Eliade, that's a French writer from 1950s, and he bases his book on just talking about basically two modes of living the sacred life and the profane life. And the trend of the modern culture is secular, right? It's becoming more and more atheistic, more and more, let's turn away from the old religious dogmas and try to establish truth on our own terms. And he makes very good arguments that you can't do that. That truth is, it must be absolute. It's like there must be, in order to establish anything, you have to establish it against some fixed point, right? Against some like absolute axiomatic truth that is eternal, meaning it's beyond all time and space, which is all relative, here relativity. Like what are you measuring? You say, okay, hundreds of years ago that the earth is stationary and the sun rotates around the earth. Well, you're measuring that against the assumption that our stasis, are like the fact that we can just stand on the ground, jump up, you fall down right where you landed. Okay, this isn't moving. The earth, it's solid, it's not moving. Therefore, I'm in a fixed position and everything else is relative to my absolute fixed point. Whereas then, the discovery, actually, no, the sun is stationary. We're rotating around the earth. Well, that's based on the assumption that the sun is in the absolute position. It's like, well, maybe that's wrong too. I mean, it's all relative. It's depending on what vantage point, right? Relative point that you're measuring against. So either way, you have to acknowledge some fixed point. In those cases, it's time and space that we're trying to measure. But
I don't know. I'm not a flat earther. I'm a fat earther. And just so you know, if you think the earth is flat, that's okay with us too. We're not going to judge you for that. There's no judgment here. It could be round, it could be flat. How do we know? We don't know. But go ahead, Balaram, with your point, because I want to hear the end of this point, because I think you were going in a good direction.
It's like with that example, either theory has valid arguments. There's.
It does.
So I suppose it's like the point with that is like there is a to kind of theory or vantage or perspective. It's like the way that you're experiencing the world is real. It might be illusory from some other vantage point, but that doesn't diminish the fact that you're experiencing it. So with the sacred, it's like our experiences, he was making the point that it's like, it's not all homogeneous, but namely space. He's dealing with the idea of space. And like, we all have some experience of sacred space. Like we all have spaces, places in our lives that we treat as different from other places. And why that is because we had a marked experience. We had an experience that marked us, that like marked a point around which everything else rotates. Everything revolves around those like significant markers in our life. And that's just natural. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The place where you had your first date or your first kiss or, your first home, your first vacation, I don't know, different things like that.
Yeah.
What speak of a place where you encountered God or, you met your soulmate or something like that, those are, we go to those places, like you pass by your childhood home and like, it's like you're visiting a place of pilgrimage. That's what the scripture says. Like people that don't know about the personality of Godhead, they consider their own home to be a place of pilgrimage, and their own language to be like the supreme language, their family to be, worshipable, like that. Isn't it? Don't we feel like that?
Yeah.
And not use those words like, hey, come take a pilgrimage to my home, but like we're essentially doing that.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It's like for the profane or the mundane or the secular person, they claim to not consider anything to be sacred, but they can't avoid acting as if there's certain things that are sacred, as opposed to or in contrast to nothing. Just like inherent in the experience of being, that there has to be something that is like real in contrast to the just nothingness of space. And so we build structures, and those structures are sort of meant to house the world, actually, like all of the variant aspects and energies of the cosmic being. Like that's the idea of Vastu, right? You've heard of Vastu. It's like architecture, like how to organize your home, like feng shui sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So feng shui, like Vastu, you look at Vastu, it shows like the house, like the blueprint, and there's a person overlaid on it. So it means there's a person that whose different limbs are mapped out on the whole house. The idea is your home is supposed to be set up like that, mirroring this cosmic being, just as the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we're reading the 10th canto, which is describing the face of that cosmic being. But earlier, it describes the form of the universal being and how to see, like right now, like there's, mountains and trees, and it said those are the bones and the hair of the universal being. And, the sun is his eye, the moon is his eye. Like that, we have this like macrocosm and microcosm, and it gives meaning and order to life, and then you form a part of that world, and therefore you have a responsibility, you have a duty, just like each cell in your body has a duty, and if it stops for the good of the whole, we call it cancer, and it gets cut out and it dies, right? In the same way, if we're not serving the whole, we get cut off from that cosmic consciousness, that Krishna consciousness, and we're subject to death. And meaninglessness, death. Let's think of death. Just if you try to go for the secular route, so there's no implicit meaning in the world. It's just whatever you make of it. You're tending towards nihilism, and that's very dangerous. You never enter into the real dance of life, or if you do, it's just sort of like, how to say, pretense. What do you think about that?
Yes.
Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you, Balarama. I really like this truck driving thing you got going on, because it's like we're all there with you, taking a ride through the countryside in the back of a big old Mack truck. It's like, hey, let's look out the window, but it's kind of like it's kind of like being in a truck going cross country with you, and having this philosophical chitter chatter that we're having, even though it is very, very good to talk about these things. I liked what you were saying there about having a solid eternal truth that is like a fixed point that is not going to change. And
Right.
when you have that kind of thing, you make so many offenses because this in this age that we live in, not only the age of Kali, but also the age of like political correctness and everything else, you know. There's so
Exactly.
many people that get so offended because over nothing because they simply cannot like flex their mind a little bit and just accept the fact that not it's not always a even playing field. Things this in this life, nothing is fair. All right? Nothing is fair. This is why we're looking for God, because we need help, you know? This is why we're getting into the Shastra. This is why we say our prayers. This is why we chant Hare Krishna. This is why we're into Krishna consciousness and spiritual things, is because life has kicked us around. Life has dealt us what a blow here, there, everywhere, and will continue to probably. Things have been hard, are going to be hard, and will be hard in the future. So rather than us being what the kids call now butt hurt about every little thing that's not right, you know, I think I can use that term, right? I think people know what I'm talking about, you know, offended at every little thing, you know. Well, you know, and they try to do it with Prabhupada all the time, let me tell you. The internet is also awash with videos who have people have been scorned by Prabhupada, you know? Just it's so sad to see these guys because they're just getting further and further and further away. And it's like so sad, you know, when all you have to do is just accept the fact that there is a fixed point of spiritual truth that is never going to change and it's going to run right over your world for better or for worse. Sometimes it'll help you. If you want to be offended, that's your choice. We choose to be offended. So I take no offense. Isn't that like one of the pillars of bhakti is like to take no offense?
Yeah. And that's all like pride versus humility. Because if you're proud, like what are you trying to be proud of? Right? Like you've made something. Like what have you made? You know, have you made the universe? You know, have you made this body? You're a part, you're a very small speck of the universal being. And so you recognize that you're going to try to, you know, prop yourself up on some, you know, mental construct.
Yeah.
And you might even become very powerful, very influential, but it's all propped up. And then you have to face death. And that that fixed point around which you're revolving, you have to that will bring you full circle, whether you consciously want to accomplish or not. I'm not sure if that was a helpful description, but put against humility is where you recognize that you're a part of something, and that gives you meaning. And in that, actually, um, like when you feel like I think people have a well, this is obvious, you know, like why be proud? It's like, well, it beats the hell out of being, you know, having a low self esteem, right? At least I'm trying to make something of my life, you know, and who are you to tell me there's a God that I have to submit to and try to be nothing for? That doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to disregard that, and I'm going to base everything on just my senses, and you know, but it's a presupposition that your body is and like your experience in your body is absolute. So you can't escape the fact that you're basing everything on some assumption. It's literally like it's not possible. It's a contradiction in terms, you know, so to speak. to think that you can get away with being like this subject object, right? Reality. You can just be like an observer and not have a point of I'm not sure how to word this, of being, right? And just whatever experience you decide that you want to have is like a valid way to like you're subject to so many things. You don't have like your vantage point is not objective. You're a part of everything. It's not that everything is a part of your whatever you want universe. And if I don't believe in death, therefore it's not real to me. It's like, well, no, death is bigger than you, whether or not you believe in it. Or it's like, well, I don't believe that eating junk food is bad for me. Why should I? That's your opinion. That's your perspective. That's your relative truth. It's like, no, it's not how it works.
Yeah.
So that's that pridefulness is thinking, no, I should just be able to make up my own worlds. And so what these stories, trying to circle back to that, are they're providing us an accurate lens of what's actually going on, and it's not right. It's not just trying to push you down into the dirt and be like you have to lower yourself in the sense of like self-esteem. Actually, humility doesn't equal self-esteem. We've talked about this before. When you're humble, it liberates you, right? You feel actually more enlivened, more excited about the world, more empowered. You feel greater, actually. You don't feel less. That's real humility. It just means that you have an accurate understanding of things, So that's what these stories are giving. It's not just like a story in that sense. It's reality. It's the absolute fact, reality. There is Krishna, and he's constantly, meaning like there is a point outside of time and space in which, like this Eliade, this author, he also says like that point is also the point of creation. And so when you have these different traditions talking about their creation myth or their creation story, it's the story that sort of reveals itself when we find that point of absolute eternality. Does that make sense? Is that interesting?
All I can say to that is that, I invented the bottle phone, and therefore, my mind is just, so I don't need to listen to your religious, thing going on, because I'm smart enough because I invented the bottle phone, So what I'm saying with that example, that kind of like silly example, is that it is a thing of pride when you can't accept a universal creator outside of yourself. And it seems like we're in this age where they're pushing this agenda more and more and more. It's the secular atheistic agenda where you should just worship your own mind, and worship all the junk that's in your mind. And so by translating back to the text, we read the text because we want to wash our mind. We want to cleanse the dirty anartas that are in our mind. One way by doing japa. We do that by chanting japa. And two, we do that by reading the Shastras and meditating on what we read and talking about what we read. So people, I guess we're just in this age where they want to, it's just like being pushed. I mean, that's all I can, I mean, that's what I'm seeing like everywhere, you know? Like I invented this ridiculous thing so everybody, so like worship me kind of a thing, It's like, no, no, do not worship yourself. Don't even worship another human being. Worship God, you know? I just I'm trying to make it clear that that's where we want to be going is we want to be worshiping God, not anybody, not ourselves. This is all about serving at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So I don't know if you do we dare get into the chapter 3 right now?
Maybe. I just want to build on that a little bit more.
Build.
Because people, when people hear worship God, they think of it as like through a secular lens of like, oh, okay, well, you're doing your religion thing. And I know what that is. It's like,
Oh yeah,
no,
they know everything about everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole wokeism, they just understand everything perfectly by putting everything in a box. Which don't get Jake started on putting God in a box.
Don't get me going. Don't do it.
But what it's like, what I mean is, it sounds like for us, perhaps Westerners, it sounds like worship a God is like an imposition on the mind. You're trying to impose something on me, whereas no, I refuse that because that's not real. What's real is like what I am experiencing, independently of all other things, and I get to choose because it's my life, and I only get one life. Therefore, I get to choose. But that we see that doesn't work out. And so God, it's not just some construct. It's not some idea or sentiment that we're just like, okay, well, I'm looking for meaning in my life, so I'm gonna just pretend that there's some being out there. No, this is the experience. Like we were talking about this a little bit in the last show, I believe, of like what happens when you get in touch with nature. It's your self nature awakens, which is spiritual. And this is a universal thing. It's like when you find that point, that eternal summit, if you will, like there's a reason that the symbology, the motifs, they're all the same. The world tree or the three world, like the mountain, the cross, the virgin birth, like so many things, they're all similar. Why? It's because it's a universal science. When you come in contact with God, that's being itself. That you're finally like you've like stepped out for even just a moment of ignoring or being distracted from. And so that's like the objective point at which revolves all of our relative perspectives. And so anyone can meet God. It's not like, oh, well, you have your Krishna that doesn't pertain to me because I'm not a Hindu. Wrong. There's no that's secularism. It's dividing these things, right? No, God is just the experience of your own being meeting the source of itself. And that has nothing to do with time, space, or your body. It's just the fact of reality. Right? And so so this is another point I want to make. Being that source of everything that Krishna is, right? He's giving meaning, he's giving culture. He's like a structure forms around that. That's like the creation story. It's like a systematic everything is great. Like you look at the creation story in the Bhagavatam, it is so elaborate. Like so much is brought out. And like the first thing that comes is like ignorance, which is, well, that's very interesting, And then just everything comes from that, right? It's not just like there's a God and then boom, there's like a whole universe and he just like made it and there you go, there you have it, and just let the horses loose sort of thing. No. It's like very systematically structured from top down, from the most subtle to sound, and like that, everything is created. So, and you can realize all of that. This Bhagavatam, it's not just a story. It's not like someone said a story one day and then Vyasadeva wrote it down. Vyasadeva meditated on the Supreme Being, and this is his vision. This is what he saw. And included in that is culture, it's meaning, it's like how to live your life, how to think, everything. It's not just like some, I hope this point is coming through clearly. It's not just some dogma, like believe in a being in the clouds, and then whatever else, it's like, it doesn't really matter. And just make up some meaning as you go.
Yeah, we're going to drive this point home. It's so funny that you brought this up because, as you know, I went to the Philadelphia temple last Sunday for Sunday feast, and I met a bunch of beautiful people there, got hooked up with their, like what they post as far as like doing programs and stuff on YouTube. This morning, I was watching their program, and there was a sweet Mataji on there talking about how Krishna consciousness is very structured. Thank God it is so structured because it gives you structure for your life. It's not all willy-nilly. From every single day, there is structure for your life. And how this structure isn't just like, wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and chant some japa. No. It's so much more beyond that. It's every single day you're reading, you're praying, you're chanting every single day. I mean, every single day. And these things just kind of work on your mind, and then that comes through in your service and what you do for other people. It comes through in your work, in your professionality, in your professional life, if you will. And this structure is solid. Like it is like this structure, and you do not move out of this structure right here. I'll show you like this real quick. Kind of looks like Balaram dropped off, but that's okay. I'll keep on going with this. This is a very important point because we as humans in our fallible state need that structure. Got to have that structure. Balaram, brother, I just kept on going even though you dropped off out there in West Virginia. In West Virginia.
Thank you.
I like the sound effects you got going on back there too. Every once in a while you hear like that's awesome. I love it. Driving that big old Mack truck. So what I was talking about was structure.
Yeah. And I don't know if you heard my comment. Yeah, but that rewires your brain, right? It's not
exactly. Yeah. Very well said.
It's not just like it's good to have discipline, and maybe maybe that's why, or at least part of the factor why I kind of rebelled against discipline growing up. I didn't see the point. I really didn't. And maybe if someone had broken it down to me, I would have been like, oh, that's a very desirable thing. You want a structure through which all of your experiences filter through. It gives you solid ground. And that's like the Bible talks about. That's such a good, I'm sure you know where I'm about to say it. The what is it, analogy or parable of the house built on sand versus built on bedrock.
Oh yeah.
I never understood that. I was just, okay, that sense. I took it as like that's just part of our dogma, that our belief is solid. And I don't know. I don't think I really understood at all what that meant. I just knew that the analogy works, or the, that parable makes sense. If you build a house on sand, it's going to seem, I didn't understand how that translates to life. You need a solid structure, like something that's not going to move, a fixed point. And if you can find that point, that's what epiphany means. Epiphany, or like the Fani is like revelation, and epi, what is that, like upon or something like that, or like on a high point?
Yeah, it might be. Hare Krishna, thanks for joining us. We are super deep into a discussion right now, but thanks for joining us, Andrea from Kansas City, I believe. Jai.
Jai Jai Haribol.
Haribol, thank you for joining us. Yes, thank you. So yeah, Kansas City, all right. So we were just talking about how
like when you have an epiphany,
yes,
it's like a point that like you finally like you found it, and everything, and that changes everything in your life. Like that's really what epiphany means. It's like it just all clicked, and there's no way for me to see the world how I used to. Right? It's not just like someone told me something, it's interesting, I should have discipline, I should do this thing, you should chant this mantra, and then you'll have a very happy spiritual existence in eternity. It's like, you have to actually experience, you actually have to meet eternity. You have to meet eternity. That's what we say, but that's what we mean when we say you see God face to face. Like you find the absolute truth, and that shifts your whole being. It changes everything. That's the creation. It's like God made you in His image. Right? Like you see Him face to face. That's darshan. Like you actually meet the truth, and you're given a life. Like that's your eternal life. And when we don't have that vision, we're trying to make some other life, and it doesn't make sense, really. It might make a little bit of sense, but not like holistically sense. Like there's a reason you have, hands, feet, and appendix, like what to speak of the gender that you've been given, like everything is, handcrafted, it's like, you don't just want to start messing around with that stuff. We were just talking earlier about a case where that went just terribly wrong for someone. It's like, that just you cut yourself. Anyway, we're not going to get into that. But when you meet that, when you find that point, that epiphany, you come into like yourself in a way that's undeniable.
Yes.
And everything else is structured around that. Everything else is given meaning, intelligence, order.
Yes.
And you move through life with a higher consciousness. It's like that's what we're here for. That's what religion is for. And it's like just accept this for as much as you can. It's like 12 steps to God as I understand Him, right? And like work with this process take part in this culture that has roots. Like, you're born into a society, culture has roots. There's a reason we do these rituals.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to say something?
I do. You can tell I'm like chomping at the bit to say something.
Like holding your
I
breath.
just wanted to say, I wanted to say very quickly, if we absolutely love it when people come on here and join us. We were actually just talking about that at the beginning of the show, and how we like it when people do that, and to do that as much as possible. And I know we have been moving around our schedule for the show a little bit in the past couple of weeks, because we've both been out of town, so it's been a little hit or miss. And we've actually really only been able to do one show a week for the past couple of weeks, because we are both so busy working and having to do what we got to do. But what I think the main point of what we stumble onto today, as far as subject matter, would be that there is a fixed structure that comes with Krishna consciousness, and that structure, Krishna's divine plan in our lives, is what works when we work it, when we do it. And we talked about what happens when as people, we can become so offended so quickly, and how that will hurt your Krishna consciousness when you choose to become offended. So I guess, to kind of wrap it up, Krishna has given us a set structure, a Vedic structure on how to live, and that structure works when you're reading Shastra, chanting, praying, meditating on who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. I mean, would you say that kind of wraps it up for this show, Balarama? I kind of feel like that's what we've been talking about.
Yeah. Let me just cite something from the paragraph here that I feel like speaks to that I didn't really see before, and then I'll let Andrea.
Yeah. By all means, let Andrea talk.
It's talking here. The text is saying that Krishna incarnated. He appeared, not only to diminish the burden of the world, but to protect the interests of the Yadu dynasty, to pacify Devaki, all the demigods, along with their wives. So he's talking about pacifying his devotees, like enlivening his devotees, right? So this is the thing. Like, we are in the position. Like, when we read these stories, we should try to put ourselves as much as we can in the positions of the different characters, and try to find how that is relevant for me. Where is it relevant for me? Yeah. It's like, okay, I'm being persecuted. Everyone can relate to that. Yeah. Everyone. It's like, why are you feeling offended? Because you feel like you're being persecuted. So, this is the solution. Invite Krishna into your life. He will come in. He will pacify you. He will diminish your burdens. It's like, this is the life that he has in store for you. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I just wanted to tie that in.
Absolutely. Andrea, by all means, unmute. We'd love to hear from you.
No, it was when you were talking, it reminded me of like something Mother Teresa had said. I don't know the direct quote, but basically she was saying, like, if you're offended by somebody, then you lack love in your heart for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of relates right across the board to one of the first pillars of bhakti, where it's I will take no offense. That's one of the first things you actually learn in when you first become, like, get into bhakti, I guess, is like these pillars, or these like staples. I don't know, they call them like different things all the time for like different programs, but there's like I've got a list of them on my refrigerator that I look at every single day. And like the very first one is like, take no offense, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Share that, Prabhu. Send me a picture.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I will. I'll for sure. I'll share that in the group. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
There's like general principles that every path will have. And it's like, what does it mean to like not have love for someone? It's like you don't acknowledge their place in your universe, right? And ultimately that manifests with murder, right? It's like you shouldn't exist. It's like, dang, it's harsh. Yeah, and there's a lot of like the New Age, the whole New Age movement is based around we're all connected, we're all one, right? And so there's just the like ubiquitous experience when you kind of tap into some deeper level of reality that, oh yeah, everything is situated just right. It's like everything has a place.
Don't get me going on that.
Right. If you start saying no, this river shouldn't be here.
Yeah. Don't.
It's
I don't want to make.
But the more that we have love, like Mother Teresa's right on, because and how does she propose, or I don't know, maybe not propose, but what does her religion say about love? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And the second commandment is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. So this is called bhakti. It means find that absolute truth, that source of love, connect with him, imbibe that consciousness of God, and then he will reveal to you a divine life in which everything matters, everything is sacred, and everything is a part of his grand being. And the natural outpouring from that is, I love everyone and everything. I see Krishna everywhere. And if you're not, if there's some part of your world that's like, it's like, okay, well, there's something here for me to learn, like, because I haven't gotten it yet. I don't get it yet. Like, I'm not getting it. Like, I should be Satchit Ananda. I should be experiencing bliss in all of my experiences, all of my relationships.
Yeah.
But so if I'm not, then it's not like, it might be a burden at first, but Christian consciousness, Krishna relieves the burden. He'll teach you.
Probably that you hit. That was it. That was spot on, as they say around here in New York. Spot on.
There it is. Was that New York accent?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. New York. So, yeah, especially in Rochester. Yeah. And I love the sound effects you got going on there with the truck too. I love it. That adds to the atmosphere. It's like we're actually there.
Out, yeah.
We're actually there.
Actually.
Yeah. So Prabhu, that was a fantastic statement. We're like way over time right now, as a matter of fact.
Like 8 minutes over.
But we do pretty much every single show going over. So I feel like, we just have these time constructs, and then like Krishna just takes over and he says, thanks, Jake and Balarama. I'm gonna take it from here. Thank you guys. I got this. Thank you.
Right.
But I do have things that I need to go to do right now. So I do have to end the show right here. But let's end the show like we always end the show, by chanting the Maha Mantra 3 times, and hopefully Balaram is not getting disconnected as soon as we're leaving the show. But we have a guest with us, so if you want to unmute your microphone, we can chant the Maha Mantra 3 times, and then we'll end the show. All right. Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Oh,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare Rama, Rama
Rama, Hare
Rama,
Hare.
Hare Hare.
Thank you so much again for joining us, and thank you, people of YouTube, for joining us. We are the Soul Ashraya Podcast, and we will check you out next time. All right, stay tuned, people. All right, we love you. We'll see you. Hare Krishna.